going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. Join me here for another leg workout because we're doing, like I said, 3 workouts in one video. And you're watching me work on the SSB here. And again, we're squatting twice a week. I try to do everything twice a week. Sometimes there is a little bit more carryover, but with the squat, dead, and everything else that kind of comes along with it, recovery is the main thing, and we're making changes and making sure everything's moving. So we're calibrating stuff and making sure that we can do all the net benefit things we need to do to get to where we need to be. The goal now, I'm feeling like we're in a position now where we can start pushing the squat and get more comfortable. And the SSB, the transformer bar, whatever you use, that safety squat style bar where it's rested on top is super beneficial for me. It allows me to keep my balance with the handles, and honestly, I don't anticipate myself ever going back to a barbell unless I have to and there's no other alternative. I think it's easier this way for me though, and we're getting the same stimulus, and with that bar position the way it is and it's pushing forward, it does make it a little bit more difficult, which is fine with me. But there's so many different mechanics you can use. You can shift this back to where you get more of a low bar style squat, but I found either the SSB, which is what we're doing now, or the high bar version is perfect for me to do those heavier squats. And like I said, everyone's a little bit different, so you just have to determine what style squat's best for you. I've done front squats in the past. I've done all the traditional stuff though, but honestly, I don't know, this bar with the handles is exactly what I need to get to where I want to be. And so that's why we're running with it. The recovery is great. I'm not getting the same issues with the forearms and pressing movements. When I would do I guess it would be like a hybrid bar squat, but a high bar squat with the traditional barbell, I would get a lot of pain in the forearms and elbows just from the mobility. And I'm a wide dude, so a lot of the squat racks were too narrow to even get your hands underneath and get a position where you can keep your wrist straight and really drive that bar into the traps. So this bar just makes it so much easier for me. You just kind of grab the handles, angle yourself in, and then it's on the lower body to kind of finish that movement. And I think that's what's done really great for me though, is I'm able to squat in a way that works for my body. I've got a weird body, I've got no torso, so it's very hard to stay upright past a certain point. That's why I have to really hinge back on my squats. If I went straight up and down, I wouldn't have enough torso to be able to allow that bar to stay in its position. It would roll forward. So this is how I have to squat. If I did have a super long torso, I would have no problem sinking that squat like a weightlifter and touching the ground, but I just don't have it in me. I've got those long legs, and so there's a big detriment every time I try to squat like that. So we're working with what we got, and then we're filling in the gaps with deadlifts, with other movements to kind of make everything nice and strong. There are some added benefits to the shorter torso though. I feel it benefits my pressing power, especially overhead press. Again, I've got longish arms too though, so there is a carryover to there as well too. But I think working with the leverages you have, we're never going to be built how we want to be built. There's going to be some weird nuance and stuff like that. Like, I've got really small joints and ankles, so not very good at curling barbells. Strongman stuff was a little bit difficult because of that. I had to really maneuver myself into positions, and I think ultimately that's what led to some of the bicep injuries, with pushing that strongman stuff that I just, wasn't exactly built for. There's a certain body type and physique that you need, and I don't have that. I've got little baby hands. Never dropped a deadlift though, based off of grip strength though, so I've got that going for me, but just small little joints that shouldn't be able to do what they do, and they do them, so I'm proud of that. But luckily when we're lifting, we're generally doing full body stuff unless it's isolation here, and we're really learning how to use our body in these different kind of tests and exercises to leverage them to the best of our ability. And that's what's fun for me. It's just adding reps and weight over time and being able to hold some sort of standard where we're able to lift, stay injury free. And the only times I've been injured is where I've done some numbskull stuff, where I'll push things where things are feeling good, you get into the environment, maybe it's amped up and there's some energy, and then you end up doing stupid stuff too. So we're going to stay away from that, and I think we kind of iron that out in our 20s, and as we enter our 30s, that's where there's give and take with what you're doing. You have to understand that you're not invincible anymore, and sometimes some lifelong things can occur from being stupid. So be smart, train smart, and kind of go from there. But you don't learn that until you train for a good amount of time, because that door is open when you first start training. Usually recovery's good, and then the wear and tear starts to show if you're not smart. So there is some guidance needed there. And then transitioning, Jesus. I'm just talking so much, into chest and shoulders. Benching again here though, so this is our or not our wide grip, because it's not really wide, but our conventional standard whatever grip bench that most people will do in the gym. And there's me hitting the safety thing and going a little haywire. And yeah, you got to be careful with certain gym benches. You got to make sure everything's set up. And what happened was that plate hit that little fabric thing, so the safety spots on here, these are nice because it's nice to the bar. It's not metal on metal, but you have to be cognizant of the width of it. Usually if you do like the metal safety spot bars, there's less to worry about. So I ended up just manipulate them, moving them down a little bit so they're less in the way. And then just going from there. You know, anytime you're lifting weights like this, any sort of deviation, somebody knocks your bar from a different angle can really not only injure yourself, but like throw off the whole movement, and not a good thing. You know, when we're lifting, we're creating a stable, solid base, and then ideally moving that weight through a straight line to be as efficient as possible. There will be some deviations, but that's kind of the whole point, is to create that stable base. And with benching, you know, you're in a position where you're laying on your back. There's very limited range of motion that you can deviate from. It's usually only above your head or lower down your body, so you want to be careful. And bench, you can always drop on yourself, so I usually recommend using safety spots for any movement. Even if you don't need them, just having them there is super beneficial. And I train alone. I prefer training alone, so for me, you know, I am my own spot. But you'll learn these skills and stuff like that when you go. Just, you know, don't end up pinned under something and then having any private, which has happened before in the past. It is what it is, but yeah. Anyway, random lifting rant. But yeah, we're still going. Moving on to the incline bench here. Like I said, I just like to break down, you know, get your priority movement, whatever your priority movement is, whether it's powerlifting or whatever. Get that big one going, get those reps in, and then break it down into the more traditional bodybuilding stuff. And I think that's the best way to train, at least for me. And you start hopping around between isolations and other movements. I guess it depends on what your goals are, but if it's absolute strength, you obviously want to save the most amount of strength. I say that as I'm doing overhead press after all that, but my overhead press has kind of been in a stagnant phase, so I haven't been able to push the weights that I need to do. When I want to start pushing OHP, I will likely do it directly after bench, or I will change one of my days to where I OHP first and then make that my primary thing, and then have the bench as an accessory, which is what I used to do. I used to give every movement their own special day where they were the first movement, and then there was a secondary that supported it that was usually the other movement. You know, less weight, not as intense, just so we can get the time under load with that movement. So I think, you know, that was my philosophy going forward. But for me though, if the weight isn't heavy and doesn't challenge me, it's not hard for me to recover, is what I'm trying to say. So I will weigh that and kind of see what's the more difficult thing to do, and then just kind of go from there, which has always been something that I've done. You know, you can do a lot of stuff though, but in my head, structurally, I like organization. That's kind of what I did. So moving on to lower body here again, and we're squatting. Who would have guessed? Yay! Okay, so just doing a lot of squatting to really just get time under the load here, and just trying to refine my form to where I can find my ideal position. You know, with the short torso, there is going to be some forward lean, especially with my long legs. So to squat effectively, we have to move a lot of stuff out of the way. So the heel shoes do help. You can do them in flats, but I was just getting some ankle issues from, you know, mobility wise, just sitting back. You know, it's easier to do a squat when you've got a weight to counterbalance again to control the motion. Kind of forces everything in place. So for me, that's ultimately, you know, why I use them. I want to be able to squat as much as I can, and if I've got sore ankles and sore calves, that's probably not a good thing. So we're working with what we got and just kind of going from there. So we're still going to play around with things, and we're still going to get more confident in the squat. You know, it's always going to be my my hardest battle will always be squatting, just because it's just a movement my body doesn't exactly agree with, but I love doing it. It's important, and it's been foundational to almost everything that I do. So that's the main goal here. Just kind of going through the squat, going from there, and then being able to transition that over to the deadlifts and everything else that we're doing. So, you know, just slowly building back up into stronger and stronger positions. And yeah, I mean, that's all you can really do is just decide on something you want to do and go from there. You'll kind of see here, I love this angle when I do it because you can kind of see everything working. You can see front, back, side, everything. And just really trying to leverage myself into certain positions in a squat. It is very hard to stay upright though, especially with some of these movements. It's just, like I said, the way I'm built, it's not ideal. And when you start putting weight under load, it forces the weaknesses in your body. Any sort of discrepancy in strength or mobility you may have, you're going to see in the squat, and you're going to have to compensate. So again, this is high bar on the back, so you can go down more low bar, which I've done before, but it just felt like it was straight up falling off of my back, so I skipped out on that. The deadlifts here, yeah, so not exactly the best workout. I can usually tell based off of that. And then if you ever see me doing 405 for working sets, something was not right in this workout, which is what happened here, because usually weights move, and I've never seen me do 405 for so slow. So not happy, but I'll take what I can get and adjust and get the lifting in, and then come back another day and figure it all out. So, you know, some days are bad, some days, you know, just not ideal. And it happens a lot in the winter months, the colder months. Just recovery. It's not that it's non-existent. It's just I feel in my own body that I'm just not as comfortable, not as warmed up. It takes more energy to get me going. And, you know, with joints and everything, cold weather is not the greatest thing. So I used to only wear shorts in the winter, which is kind of wild. Now that I'm wearing pants and more layers, I feel warmer when I walk into the gym, and it's a lot better that way for me. It just makes it so that I can, you know, get going, you know, feel ready in the movement. You could just do extended cardio warm-ups, but I'm trying to get in, trying to get moving so that we can move on, because those gym traffic jams, I swear, where everyone's in there training and things can get a little wild. So for me at least, that's why I'm trying to standardize things, wear the pants, you know, get warmed up, amped up, do some mobility stuff, you know, like sit in a squat, open things up, and then get moving. I think the best warm-up for a movement is to do the movement, and you can just take, you know, whatever time you need to take to get there. Obviously, treadmills and other cardio equipment are fine and stuff too, though, but I like doing the movement you're going to do, because that will just make everything better in the long term. So that's kind of the whole process and everything going on here. And then everything else is just extra, like these accessory exercises. Yeah, I'm mentally there though, but I'm not as dialed in as the heavier compound movements, and that's okay. You know, I want my focus to be there on the heavy movements when I have to move stuff and there's more risk of injury and stuff. And all this other stuff is just kind of getting that extra oomph out of the workout and going from there, getting the extra reps and kind of moving on from there. So, but anyway, that's the video. Like, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff, and you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.